Look out.
When I get to the bottom, I go back to the top of the slide. And I stop and I turn and I go for a ride. And I get to the bottom and I see you again.
I first learned of this place in early 2016. It was one of the many small villages, homes, and properties eminent domain by the U.S. government in the 1960s for the Tox Island Dam project. This project, had it ever made it to fruition, would have seen the government build a dam to flood what is now the Delaware Water Gap National Recreation Area, turning it into a 37-mile-long lake going from Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania to Port Jervis, New York. Luckily, this never came to be, as it would have put my hometown at the bottom of a massive lake. But sadly, in preparation of starting the dam, the government began to take the homes and properties from hundreds of people living in the area, displacing them and leaving them homeless. Worse yet, even after the project was shut down, the government refused to return the homes to their owners, favoring instead to change the mission of the project in favor of a narrative of preserving the environment and turning it into the National Recreation Area. The homes and towns were left to rot until the area began to become overrun with squatters who trashed and destroyed many of the buildings. Only a few were spared by the damage of the squatters before the National Park Service organized a massive raid to run them all out of the area as they had done to the original owners years before. The buildings remained vacant for quite some time. Some of the lucky ones were turned into historic sites and preserved. Others stand in decay to this day. In all of the research I've done, I can find no reason or incident in the past to look to explain the strange things I have experienced here. There seems to be no murders or tragic events to imprint themselves on the area, eminent domain aside. Yet something seems to remain. The first and most major occurrence happened in the fall of 2016. I had been exploring the area and was returning home. This village is now a park/historic site of sorts and is located in a fairly remote place. As a result, it is also one of the last and only stops in the area for a bathroom break. I arrived in the village right around dusk and used the restroom. Afterwards, deciding that the setting sun had created a cool aesthetic to take some pictures of the old buildings, and I began snapping away. As I did so, I began to notice I wasn't alone. Walking through the area shown in the last few clips, I noticed people in really old 1800s style clothing all around me. They were going about their business, looking as though they were getting ready for some sort of community bonfire, as a large fire had been built and was blazing in a nearby clearing. Thinking maybe a historical society had arranged some sort of reenactment event, and noticing that none of them seemed to acknowledge my presence, I paid them no mind and went about my business taking pictures. I made my way to the back of the village, which has a pretty much straight path to be followed to get from one end of it to the other, then backtracked the way I came. The whole affair lasted maybe 15 to 20 minutes as the sun set and the area grew darker and darker. As I made my way back, I began to notice something peculiar. Minutes earlier, as I made my way through the village, I was surrounded by what I had thought were reenactors. There was probably a good 25 or 30 of them spread throughout the abandoned town. But now, I was completely alone. There was no trace of any of the people I had seen just moments earlier. I assumed that maybe they had ducked into the old buildings and that was why I had no longer seen any of them. But as I continued on, it got stranger. In the spot I had passed where they had a large bonfire blazing away with several people huddled around it, there was now nothing. Not even evidence that a fire had been there. No ashes, no smoke, no burnt wood. The ground was even cool to the touch. It was as if the whole thing had just vanished. Adding to the high strangeness of it all, when I reached the parking lot in my car, it dawned on me that I had the only vehicle there, and that the parking lot was completely empty when I had arrived. This place is located very far from anywhere, and it would be a very long walk to get there on foot, let alone leave that quickly to anywhere without the aid of a vehicle. When I returned home that night, I decided to look through my pictures, kicking myself that I had done the polite thing and not taken any pictures of the people who I had thought were reenactors. Most of the photos looked ordinary and nothing seemed out of place. Except for one. In the first picture I took, which was of the very building in this clip, something appeared in the opening at the top. Something I had obviously not seen at the time of taking the pic. I was shocked, as it had become one of the best paranormal things I have ever caught on camera to this day. As it can clearly be seen, a white transparent figure stands in the opening above, seemingly observing my approach. I have no idea who or what this could have been, but it is quite unsettling to know that it was watching me and pointing in the direction of what I thought were reenactors, all the while I was oblivious to its presence. This would not be the last strange occurrence I would experience in this place. The next would happen in February of 2020, just before the world would be heavily shaken up by the pandemic. This time I was not alone. My wife and I had just finished hiking at the nearby Buttermilk Falls with a couple of our dogs and decided to take a nice evening stroll in the village before leaving for home. We reached the back and began to head back to the car when a bizarre sound caught our attention. It was a loud humming or buzzing sound that seemed to be coming from the direction we were walking in. From the other side of this building, we could see a bright light pulsating different colors in the rhythm with the sound. The color would go from green to blue to red, back to green. We began moving at a quicker pace, attempting to reach whatever the source of the sound was to try to identify it. But as we got just to the other side of the building, there was a loud explosion, and sparks shot into the air. When we rounded the corner, nothing was there. We could see nothing obvious that would have caused the sound, lights, or explosion. Rattled by this, we began to make our way back to the car. A road runs through the middle of this place, and in order to go from one side to the other, you have to cross it. As we were crossing the road to go back to the first side, we looked up to the mountaintop to our right. There, we could unfortunately see a forest fire beginning to burn. This area is a notorious dead zone for cell service, and we were helpless to inform the fire department of the growing fire. The only thing we could do was try to get to the car to escape the area as quickly as possible and call for help. However, the bad luck continued. As we approached the car, we began to notice smoke hanging in the air on that side of the village as well. Smoke that couldn't have possibly come from the blaze up on the mountaintop. There was a second fire, and we were very close to it. Once we reached the car, we could see the second fire was only a short distance into the woods right next to the village. I couldn't tell you why now, but something strongly compelled me to go into the woods and approach it, so I did. I ran in as fast as I could, and in no time I was face to face with the cause of the fire. It would seem whatever the source of the sound and explosion were had done something to snap a power line down next to the village and somehow one up on the mountaintop at the same time as well. There in front of me was the downed line, creating an eerie glow in the dirt and clouds of smoke in the air. Knowing there was nothing I could do about it, I snapped this picture and sprinted back to the car. We got lucky that night. As I began to leave the village, we were met by the wailing sirens of approaching fire trucks. The fire had been spotted by residents on the other side of the mountain who had fortunately called the fire department early into the fire starting. They arrived just in time to get the fire out before it could spread. The last and most recent strange occurrence involved this building in October of 2021. While not as extreme as the other two, it was unnerving nonetheless. My wife and I had come to the area to attend a festival in the next town over and had some time to kill. We decided to hang out in the village for a little while before it began. It was a cool and kind of dreary afternoon when we had arrived, and it seemed as though we had the place to ourselves as no other cars were in the parking lot. The whole place had an eerie silence and stillness to it. We took the usual up and back path we always do when walking through the town, and as we came near this building, I walked up onto the porch near this door. Without warning, as I got near the bench, something inside the house slammed into the wall with great force right in front of me. The impact was so great that I could feel the vibration through the floor on the deck, and the drapes at the windows shook from the force. This badly frightened my poor wife, who grabbed me by the arm and pulled me away from the building. As we moved away from it and over to this tree, we looked back at the house. On the top floor in the window, we could see the curtain shaking like there was wind blowing on it, despite the window being shut. After a few brief moments, they went still and the activity ceased. The activity in this place is sparse, occurring only 3 times out of the dozens of trips I have made here. 99% of the time, it is a wonderful and peaceful place that is a well-preserved look back into a different time. But sometimes, even if nothing as drastic as the experiences I have documented here happened, there is a feeling in the air. An undeniable feeling that you aren't alone, even if no one seems to be around. Things will go quiet, and you can just feel that you aren't wanted there. All you can do is show respect and hope to go uncontacted by whatever it is that resides in this place. You never know who or what is watching in the abandoned village.